Two nations with no shared borders and no direct colonial history are now engaged in a devastating open war. For decades, the world watched Israel and Iran circle each other through shadow conflicts, assassinations, and proxy militias. Experts warned that direct confrontation was inevitable, but almost nobody predicted how violently it would arrive. To understand this explosive reality, we must rewind over a century to the collapse of an empire and the birth of a nation. This is the cinematic story of the Iran-Israel conflict, a geopolitical earthquake that has permanently fractured the Middle East. At the dawn of the 20th century, the crumbling Ottoman Empire controlled the region until its catastrophic miscalculation in World War I. Britain and France carved up the fallen empire, drawing arbitrary borders across ethnic and religious lines, with ruthless disregard for the inhabitants. Britain took mandatory Palestine, a territory home to an Arab majority and a growing Jewish community fleeing European persecution. Through the contradictory promises of the 1917 Balfour Declaration, Britain essentially pledged the exact same territory to both Jewish Zionists and Arab nationalists. As the horrors of the Holocaust pushed international support for a Jewish homeland to its absolute peak, a fractured Britain simply abandoned the territory. On May 14, 1948, the State of Israel was declared, instantly triggering a massive invasion by 5 surrounding Arab armies. Against all military predictions, Israel survived and expanded its territory, celebrating what they saw as a miraculous war of independence. For Palestinians, this exact moment became the Nakba, a catastrophe that displaced over 700,000 people and created an unresolved generational refugee crisis. Surprisingly, Iran was not historically Israel's enemy. The Persian monarchy actually maintained quiet diplomatic and intelligence cooperation with the newborn state. The violent pivot from quiet ally to mortal enemy stems from one of the most dramatic political upheavals of the modern era. In 1951, Iran's democratically elected Prime Minister, Mohammad Mossadegh, dared to nationalize the country's British-controlled oil industry. In a fateful response, the CIA and British intelligence orchestrated Operation Ajax in 1953, completely overthrowing Mossadegh to protect Western oil interests. They restored the pro-Western Shah, who ruled with an iron fist and a brutal secret police force, while America conveniently looked the other way. Decades of profound humiliation and repressed anger finally erupted in the 1979 Islamic Revolution, forcing the Shah to flee forever. Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini stepped into the power vacuum, transforming Iran into a radical, anti-Western Shia theocracy almost overnight. The new Islamic Republic viewed America as the Great Satan and branded Israel as an illegitimate outpost of Western imperialism. The 1979 U.S. Embassy takeover, where 52 American diplomats were held hostage for 444 days, permanently hardened Tehran's ideological hatred toward Washington and its Israeli ally. When Saddam Hussein invaded in 1980, an isolated Tehran fought a brutal 8-year war that claimed over 1 million lives and fundamentally altered its military doctrine. Realizing they could never rely on foreign powers, Iranian leaders accelerated their pursuit of indigenous ballistic and nuclear capabilities. Crucially, Iran pioneered a brilliant and lethal proxy strategy, funding groups like Hezbollah in 1982 to bleed its enemies without risking Iranian soil. Throughout the 2000s, Iran covertly advanced its nuclear program, triggering Israel's deepest existential fears of a nuclear-armed hostile regime. Israel unleashed a relentless shadow war, deploying the Stuxnet cyber weapon and actively assassinating key Iranian nuclear scientists. The 2015 JCPOA nuclear deal briefly paused the clock, trading nuclear limitations for the lifting of heavy international sanctions. However, President Donald Trump's controversial 2018 withdrawal shattered the agreement,
prompting Iran to aggressively accelerate its nuclear enrichment once again. The shadow war rapidly intensified as Israel routinely bombed Iranian weapons shipments in Syria, while Iran tightened its ring of proxies around Israeli borders. Everything accelerated on October 7, 2023, when Iranian-backed Hamas killed 1,200 Israelis and took 250 hostages in the deadliest attack on Jewish people since the Holocaust. Israel responded with a ferocious invasion of Gaza, resulting in a catastrophic death toll of over 40,000 Palestinians that further radicalized the entire region. Emboldened by a new political mandate, Israel turned its sights aggressively toward dismantling Iran's sprawling axis of resistance. In an unprecedented September 2024 intelligence operation, Israel detonated booby-trapped pagers and walkie-talkies across Lebanon, killing 42, injuring over 4,000, and crippling Hezbollah's ranks. Days later, an overwhelming Israeli airstrike dropped 80 bombs to obliterate an underground bunker in Beirut, killing legendary Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah. The unspoken rules of the shadow war completely disintegrated when Israel bombed an Iranian diplomatic compound in Syria in April 2024, killing 2 generals. Forced to defend its collapsing regional deterrents, Iran retaliated with over 300 drones and missiles in its first-ever direct attack on Israeli soil, though 99% were intercepted. Neither side backed down, locking the Middle East into a terrifying and unprecedented cycle of retaliatory ballistic strikes and devastating air raids. The absolute boiling point finally erupted on February 28, 2026, with the launch of the catastrophic U.S.-Israeli military campaign known as Operation Epic Fury. American B-2 stealth bombers decimated Iranian ballistic facilities, while Israeli jets relentlessly pounded strategic targets across all 31 of Iran's provinces. The strikes hit the heart of Tehran, destroying the historic Golistan Palace and killing Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei alongside multiple top officials. The civilian toll has been utterly devastating, highlighted by a horrific U.S.-Israeli strike on a southern Iranian girls' school that killed 165 children. In immediate retaliation, Iran unleashed coordinated drone and missile swarms targeting Allied infrastructure across the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and the broader Persian Gulf. Escalating the global stakes, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard officially choked off the worldwide energy economy by closing the critical Strait of Hormuz. With U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio warning of even harder hits to come, the geopolitical landscape is teetering on the edge of the abyss. Will the Iranian government collapse, or will the regime survive to plunge the globe into an unprecedented and uncontrollable wider regional war? What we do know is that today's burning skies were ignited by a century of broken colonial promises, political revolutions, and desperate proxy wars. The bombs are still falling, the fires are still burning, and the entire world holds its breath to see how this truly ends. But now, you know the comprehensive, explosive history behind how this geopolitical nightmare started. If this cinematic deep dive helped you decode the world's most dangerous conflict, hit subscribe, because we post new documentaries exactly like this every single week.